Baba Tales presents Never Again, My Boarding House Nightmare, Season 1. They say boarding school builds character. They don't tell you what kind of character. The kind that screams in the dark and sees faces that aren't there. The kind that never forgets the smell of old dust mixed with the cold breath of something dead. This is my story. This is why you should never send your child away. Part 1. The Arrival and the Unease. My parents, their faces all serious like, the way they get when they think they are doing the right thing. They dropped me off at Ife High. Good school, Ifyok. Strong discipline. Better future for you, Papa had said, patting my shoulder hard. My small trunk felt heavy, like it held all my hopes, and all my fears. I was just 12, living our small life near Oshogbo for this big, famous boarding school. Aziza Block. Even the name sounded old and tired. It was a long building, the paint peeling like sunburnt skin. My room was at the very end, sharing with 3 senior boys. Wale, always with his nose in a book, quiet like a shadow himself. Then the twins, Kehinde and Taiwo. They laughed a lot, but it never quite reached their eyes. Like they knew a secret, a dark one. From the first night, the cold hit me. Not the normal Harmattan chill. This was deep, like the earth when they dig a grave. It felt hungry, and then the sound started. After the lights went out, when the whole school was supposed to be sleeping, we'd hear it. A slow, wet scratch from the hallway outside our door. Like something heavy, something unalive, was being dragged along the stone floor. We'd hold our breath, listening until it faded into the silence. Wale started sleeping with his small reading lamp on. He said he saw something standing at the end of his bed. Tall, so thin it looked like it could break. Its head, it was tilted funny, like a bird with a broken neck. The twins tried to spook him more, making ghostly moans, but even their laughter sounded forced. Their eyes kept flicking towards the dark doorway. Part 2. Whispers and Cold. The dragging got louder, closer. Sometimes, there was a wet, choking rattle with it, like someone gasping for air underwater. It started earlier in the evening, creeping into the quiet of prep time. You could feel everyone in Aziza Block tense up when it began. Kehinde, the bolder twin, his face pale even in the dim light, swore he saw a hand pressed against our window one night. Just the fingers, long and white, with nails that looked like thorns. It vanished into the darkness as quick as it came. Taiwo, usually the jokester, didn't crack a smile. He just stared at the window, his eyes wide and empty. They started sleeping with their beds pushed together, backs touching, like they were guarding each other from something unseen. Our room, right at the end of the block, it felt like the heart of it all. The cold was so thick you could almost see it, a grey mist hanging in the air. Sometimes, a blast of icy wind would sweep through, even when the windows were locked tight. And then, the whispers. Not words you could understand. Just a low, hissing murmur that seemed to come from inside the walls themselves. A chorus of pain, of suffering held just below hearing. One afternoon, I was alone, trying to focus on my book. Suddenly, I couldn't breathe. A heavy weight pressed down on my chest, even though I was lying on my side. Blackness swam at the edges of my vision. Then, just as fast, it was gone. I sat up, gasping, the lingering cold on my skin a terrifying reminder that I hadn't imagined it. Part 3. Denial and Dread. After what happened to me, we were always looking over our shoulders. We moved together, the 3 of us, like we were surrounded by something we couldn't see. We tried to tell Bola, the senior prefect for Aziza Block. She was big and stern, always frowning. She just waved her hand dismissively. Junior year jitters, she'd said, rolling her eyes. Aziza Block just has a spooky reputation. Ignore it. But even as she spoke, her eyes kept flicking down the long, dark corridor. The lights started acting strange. Not just flickering. They'd go completely out, plunging the whole block into blackness for long, stretched out seconds. The only sound would be our ragged breathing and that low, constant murmur from the walls. During one blackout, a scream ripped through the silence from the far end of the hallway. A high, choked scream that stopped as suddenly as it started. When the lights sputtered back on, everyone was frozen, their faces masks of pure terror. No one claimed to have screamed. The senior boys searched, but found nothing. That night, the whispers changed. They started to sound like words, broken and twisted. We'd strain our ears, trying to understand. Cold, gone, mine. Fragments that felt like they were clawing their way into our minds. The dragging sound outside our door was heavier, followed by sickening thump, 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 like something heavy was being dropped again and again. Part 4. The stain and the symbols. The dark stain on the wall near our room. It started to pull my eye. It wasn't just a stain anymore. It seemed to pulse with a deeper darkness. The cold radiating from it felt like it could freeze you from the inside out. One morning, I noticed tiny scratches all around it, like something small and sharp was trying to dig its way through. During lunch, our stomachs tight with fear, we snuck back with Wale's small knife, the one he hid under his mattress. As we carefully scraped away the peeling paint around the stain, the whispering in the hallway went crazy. A frantic hissing, like whatever was in the walls was angry. The carvings underneath, they were clearer now. Strange lines and circles, twisted in ways that made your eyes feel wrong. They looked ancient, like something not meant for us to see. A deep, cold dread filled the air. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door at the end of the hallway, the one that led outside, slammed shut with a deafening boom that shook the whole building. A blast of freezing air swept through the corridor, carrying a smell like dead leaves and wet earth. The silence that followed was heavy, pressing down on our ears, making the frantic beating of our hearts sound deafening. Part 5. Trapped in silence. The silence after the door slammed. It was thick, like you could touch it. We huddled together, our backs pressed against the icy wall, our breath coming out in white puffs. The usual sounds of the school, the shouts from the football field, the chatter from the dining hall, they were gone. It was like Aziza block had been cut off from the rest of the world. Then, a new sound started. It came from inside the walls of our room. A soft, slow thump. 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 Like a heartbeat, but heavy and wrong. It grew louder, vibrating through the floor and into our chests. And the dark stain on the outside wall, it seemed to pulse in time with it. My reflection in the locker mirror, I didn't like looking at it anymore. But one evening, while changing, I caught a glimpse. It wasn't just the black eyes I'd seen before. My face, it looked sharper, thinner. The mouth was stretched into a cruel, tight line. It was me, but not me. A twisted copy. It was gone in a blink, but the terror stuck to me like a wet cloth. The twins, they'd seen it too. Their faces told the same story. We started sleeping with the single bulb on all night, a weak light trying to fight back the darkness. But even the light couldn't stop the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes on us in the shadows. Part 6. Crawling dread. The dragging sound, it changed. It sounded wet now, like something with soft, heavy limbs was pulling itself along. The choked rattling was closer, more frequent. One night, it stopped right outside our door. Then came a series of wet, sucking sounds, like something was trying to pull itself under the gap. The nightmares got worse. The tall, thin figure, it had eyes now. Milky white, and they never blinked. It would reach for us with long, bony fingers, and when it touched us in the dream, the cold would stay with us when we woke up, a chill that went right to our bones. One morning, Taiwo woke up screaming. He was pointing at the ceiling, his eyes wide with a terror that stole his voice. He just kept mouthing a word, crawling, crawling. We looked, but there was nothing there. He stayed like that for hours, his body stiff, his eyes locked on something only he could see. The fear, it wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was like something solid in the room with us, pressing down, stealing our air. We knew Aziza block wasn't just old. It was alive, and it hated us. Part 7. Broken Denial. After what happened to Taiwo, the senior students couldn't ignore it anymore. Whispers turned into frantic talk. Bola, the prefect who'd brushed us off, her face was pale and tight. She admitted that strange things had happened in Aziza block before, things they tried to forget. A group of senior boys, armed with machetes, their faces a mix of fear and false bravery, searched Aziza block after lights out. We huddled in our room, listening to their heavy footsteps echoing in the dark hallway. They searched everywhere. They found nothing. But when they came back, their faces were grim. They talked about a cold spot near our end of the hallway, a feeling of something heavy and evil. Femi, the tallest senior, the one who always laughed at ghost stories, he confessed that he felt something brush against his hand near the stand wall. Cold and sleek. He couldn't explain it. He looked genuinely scared. That night, the dragging sound was joined by something new. A soft, heartbreaking weeping, like a child lost and in terrible pain. It twisted something deep inside us, making our fear feel mixed with a terrible sadness. Part 8. Shifting Faces. Taiwo, he wasn't getting any better. His parents had taken him home, his eyes still vacant. The dread in Aziza block was thick, suffocating. Even the teachers avoided our block. The thumping from the walls, it was constant now, a heavy beat that vibrated through the floor. The dark stain on the outside wall, it looked bigger, the edges blurry, like something was growing underneath. One evening, we had to go back to our room for our books. Kehinde pointed at the carvings under the scraped paint. They had changed. The lines had moved, forming shapes that looked like faces. Gaunt, elongated, with empty, staring eyes. As we watched, one of the carved mouths seemed to open, just a crack, letting out a faint, almost silent sigh. We ran. We left our books scattered on the floor. The image of those shifting faces burned into our minds. We couldn't go back inside. We spent the rest of the night huddled outside with the other junior students, our fear a shared blanket. Part 9. The lights go out news had reached the principal. He finally agreed to investigate Aziza block properly. A team of workers came during the day, looking pale and scared. They drilled holes, checked the foundations. They found nothing, just old building. That night, it felt like whatever was in Aziza block was angry. The lights started to flicker violently, then exploded one by one, plunging the whole block into absolute darkness. A terrible noise erupted, the dragging, the rattling, the thumping, the weeping, and now, a chorus of whispers, clear and cold. They spoke our names. They said they wanted us. They said we would never leave. Panic, screams, students trying to get out, but the main door, it wouldn't open. It felt like something was holding it shut. The air turned icy, and the smell of rot was so strong it made you gag. In the darkness, something cold and bony brushed against my leg. A choked sob escaped my lips. Part 10. Hours now. Trapped in the blackness, surrounded by those horrifying sounds, the evil in Aziza block felt like a living thing. Then, people started seeing things in the dark. Quick flashes of tall, thin shapes with milky eyes. Shadows crawling on the walls. And those carved faces from our room, glowing with a faint, green light. A cold hand grabbed my arm. Nails like ice dug into my skin. A voice, old and raspy, whispered right in my ear. A voice that felt like it came from the stones themselves. You are ours now. Then I saw it. Right in front of me, in that airy green glow. My own face. But the eyes, they were black pits, filled with a hungry, ancient hate. It smiled. A slow, knowing smile that promised forever. And then, nothing. Blackness swallowed everything. What happened in the darkness? What did they want? And why did it feel like we were never meant to leave Aziza block? Join us next time for Season 2 of Samubaba Tales, Never Again. The nightmare is far from over. What happened in the darkness? What did they want? And why did it feel like we were never meant to leave Aziza Block? If you felt the chill crawling up your spine, if the whispers echoed in your own ears, then you know this story is far from over. Subscribe now and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the terrifying continuation of Ifeok's nightmare in Season 2 of Samubaba Tales, Never Again. What secrets does Aziza Block hold? What awaits those who dare to return? Share your own spooky boarding school stories in the comments below. Have you ever felt like you went alone? Let us know, and join us, if you dare, for the next chapter.